Good morning from the Freedom of Information and Privacy Association. I'm Patrick Farnsworth, and this is your Access and Privacy Online News Summary for Saturday, November 29th. This week, the national spotlight is squarely on children's privacy and online safety. Advocates are renewing calls for federal action as harms escalate, from AI-driven manipulation to tragic failures in youth mental health information practices. And as families head into holiday shopping, experts warn that AI-powered toys may be creating new risks inside the home. We'll then turn to whistleblowers exposing accountability gaps inside universities and provincial systems, significant cyber findings from Alberta and Nova Scotia, and a series of access to information stories that show how transparency continues to reveal mismanagement across the country. Internationally, a major court ruling against Meta could shape digital privacy across Europe. And in the United States, a sweeping investigation into predictive surveillance, AI regulation, and the pressure to release the Epstein files is raising urgent questions about civil liberties. Let's dive in. We begin with child safety online, where the Canadian Press reports a sweeping call for action from a coalition of child advocacy and medical organizations. They say children are now facing a national emergency of online exploitation, extortion, bullying, and serious mental health impacts. At the center of their concern is the former Online Harms Act, introduced by former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, which would have required platforms to reduce risks, protect children, and remove sexualized or non-consensual content within 24 hours. The government says the bill won't return in its original form, but elements may appear in upcoming privacy and AI legislation. The Attorney General said they will move forward with legislation that will include measures to protect children from online sexual exploitation and extortion, as well as tighten child luring laws. Advocates warn the crisis is escalating too quickly for a piecemeal approach. The president of the Canadian Medical Association said doctors see the negative health impacts of social media use firsthand. The CEO of Children First Canada also said there has been a rapid increase in cases of harm caused by AI in particular. Meanwhile, experts sound alarms over AI-powered toys. As holiday shopping ramps up, the Canadian Press says psychologists and child development researchers are urging caution around AI-embedded toys, from plush chatbots to smart robots. They warn that these devices can distort healthy play, undermine imagination, and gather sensitive information from children who may confide in their toys. The toys' creators insist they comply with the foreign law in the United States Children's Online Privacy Protection Act and avoid storing sensitive data. They also emphasize parents can control their children's AI experience. But child development specialists say that's unrealistic for most families, and that regulation has not kept pace. This week, the Canadian Pediatric Society formally advised that AI tools are not recommended for children. According to the director of Fair Play's Young Children Thrive Offline program, the AI component is usually prominently advertised, so they're not difficult for parents to spot. Checking to see if the toy needs to be connected to Wi-Fi is another element to look for, she said. And in BC, a tragic case raising important questions about access to information and mental health in youth. 17-year-old Maya Cassidy, just months from graduation, committed suicide hours after reading her mental health records obtained through an FOI request. Her family says the diagnostic terminology, never discussed with them directly, triggered a fatal misunderstanding. The BC College of Physicians and Surgeons and the OIPC both note that minors can request their own medical records without the consent of a legal guardian when deemed capable. Public bodies may withhold information if disclosure risks grave harm, but with thousands of requests each year, authorities say screening every file is not feasible. CEO of the BC division of the Canadian Mental Health Association said there could be a broader issue around how clinicians communicate ponderings or diagnoses to patients. Still, he said that access to one's own health records is a right. Maya's mother is now advocating for mandatory professional support when teens request their records, calling the current system careless and negligent. Green Party legislator Jeremy Valeriot echoed Cassidy's calls to ensure that teens who request their medical records are provided professional support to interpret the records. We have an important group of whistleblower stories this week. Ontario has tabled new penalties, including lifetime license suspensions for dangerous driving causing death following the killing of Andrew Cristillo. The teen charged in the crash had a prior dangerous driving incident involving Premier Doug Ford. Liberals and Greens said there was a hypocrisy in cracking down on dangerous driving while making it harder to enforce speeding laws, with the government's move to ban speed cameras. As well, the government says it is looking at giving transit constables the authority to enforce prohibitions on illegal drug use on transit, exploring a requirement that impaired drivers pay child support if they kill a parent or guardian, and considering making parts of the sex offender registry publicly available. The omnibus bill also proposes restrictions on invasive animal research, prompted by two whistleblowers who exposed testing on dogs and puppies at a London Health Research Institute. Shifting to Manitoba, LGI reporter Maggie McIntosh at the Winnipeg Free Press reports that a former Brandon University dean, now a vice president, overrode an instructor and changed a failing grade to an A+, despite the syllabus making that outcome impossible for that student even with perfect scores. Leaked documents show the student originally received a 45% in the advanced science course, which translated to an F in BU's letter grade system, and was updated in the university's internal database within 24 hours. The case resurfaced after leaked documents revealed a pattern of internal concern, a formal grievance, and an eventual apology. The university is now reviewing its grade appeal protocols. A mass email, that was also a statement from spokesman Grant Hamilton, included a warning for potential whistleblowers, citing the legal implications of leaking confidential information about a student. Also from Maggie McIntosh, the University of Winnipeg has abruptly terminated President Todd Mondor mid-term. The board says the departure is unrelated to a whistleblower complaint under investigation, though documents suggest staff raised concerns about transparency, cost-cutting, campus rules, and turnover. Mondor also faced criticism in connection to an exodus of high-ranking staff members during the first 18 months of his term, and a March 2024 cybersecurity attack that canceled classes and shut down operations across the university. The now former leader did not respond to a request for comment. The university is searching for an interim leader as it rolls out a new 5-year strategic plan. Provost and Vice President Academic Pavlina Radia will oversee operations in an acting capacity for the time being. Now to privacy and cybersecurity stories across Canada. In Alberta, LGI reporter Caden Brayshaw at Livewire Calgary writes that the Calgary Board of Education took reasonable steps after the massive PowerSchool breach, though the OIPC found gaps in vendor oversight, contract safeguards, and breach response procedures across multiple school boards. Threat actors tried to extort boards before PowerSchool paid ransom directly. Boards are now being urged to renegotiate contracts with stronger privacy and security clauses, and limit remote access to their student information systems as an as-needed basis only, among other points. Prior to the release, the board-issued statement said the CBE will be taking a closer look at the recommendations put forward in the report to learn from the incident and improve its process where appropriate. Meanwhile, in a related Alberta story, Livingstone Range School Division, or LRSD, confirms archive data was accessed. LGI reporter Samya Loya at Shooting the Breeze reports that Livingstone Range School Division student and staff data, dating back to 2012, was compromised from a decommissioned PowerSchool server. Alberta's Privacy Commissioner found widespread failures across educational bodies, including insufficient monitoring of third-party access, inadequate safeguards, and limited breach response planning. The report issued 22 recommendations for governments, boards, and PowerSchool. For students, the compromised information included names, ID numbers, gender, dates of birth, home addresses, and phone numbers, medical details, and personal health numbers. For parents and guardians, contact details and custodial arrangements were accessed. Staff information included contact details, employee numbers and email addresses, and in some cases, social insurance numbers. Turning to another big cyber attack of 2025. The Canadian press reports that Nova Scotia Power's CEO says there is high confidence the April breach was linked to a Russia-based threat group. The utility refused to pay ransom, citing U.S. sanctioned laws, and has struggled with system rebuilds and customer overbilling due to manual meter reading. The CEO denied that the company would benefit from any overpayments, adding that the utility would audit its books to verify this. Remote meter systems may be restored by March, and the province is considering financial penalties for the utility. Also, among a sea of customer complaints, one solution could see the utility automatically reimbursing people who were overbilled so they don't have to request refunds. Every cyber attack of this nature raises an important question that regulators and others are reviewing. What level of disruption from foreign-sponsored cyber attacks on NATO members will eventually trigger an Article 5 principle of collective defense? Given where this attack points, we look forward to hearing what action the Canadian government takes on this matter. And now turning to a busy week for stories informed by access to information. AI-generated errors have been found in a major Newfoundland healthcare report. LGI reporter Justin Brake at The Independent confirms at least 4 false citations in a Deloitte policy report. This is the second AI-related scandal in the province this year. According to documents obtained through an access to information request, the $1.6 million review contained non-existent academic references, raising concerns about third-party use of AI in government commission policy documents. Last month, Deloitte made international headlines after its firm in Australia produced a report for the Australian government that contained AI-generated errors, including a fabricated quote from a federal court judgment and references to non-existent academic research papers. Next, in Quebec, labor groups warn that Bill 3, dividing dues into mandatory and optional categories, could undermine unions' ability to pursue legal challenges or public interest campaigns. Under the proposed law, any activity deemed to be outside a union's primary mission wouldn't be eligible for financing via mandatory fees, but through optional fees only. Optional fees would also have to be approved through a majority vote before they could be collected. Bill 3 was tabled at the end of October with the aim of increasing transparency between unions and their members. According to the bill, any activities related to the launching of legal challenges over the constitutionality or validity of laws, the running of ad campaigns, or a union's participation in social movements would all fall under the optional dues model. Staying in Quebec, communities north of the 55th parallel are facing severe water shortages, outdated systems, and labor shortages. A lack of access to water is a story that is repeated over and over year after year. 2022 was particularly tough, with 13 shortages, according to partial data obtained from the Nunavut Regional Board of Health and Social Services through an access to information request. This past spring, Provincial faced an unprecedented water crisis after a water main froze in a March blizzard, leaving the town without consistent water deliveries for months. A full infrastructure overhaul is estimated at $2 billion. Next in Ontario, LGI reporter Anushka Yadav at The Pointer reports on an FOI request that returned nearly 1,500 pages with 86% fully redacted, obscuring how a 1-year-old startup secured a multi-million-dollar transit contract approved in closed session. This came on the heels of the head of the transit union accusing the city of bargaining in bad faith. There were no public staff reports on the matter, no accounting for how these millions of taxpayer dollars are being spent, or any detailed explanation of how the contract came to be. The Municipal Freedom of Information and Privacy Act includes exemptions which allow a municipality to withhold certain information. However, the city of Brampton has appeared to be expanding the use of these exemptions and may now face complaints. We're big fans of library services here at FIPA, and the next 2 articles provide a great example of the impacts these services create at the local level. LGI reporter Michael Riley at the Bancroft Times tells us the Faraday Council heard about rising digital usage, new Library of Things programming, and a continued push for homebound service delivery, as the Hastings Public Library presented its 2026 budget. The head librarian said for every dollar invested in a library, they generate multiple dollars in community value, whether that is through accessible access to information, literacy, access to government services, or whatever else you need internet and computers to engage with. Brock Weir at the Auroran tells us of a surge in users at the Auroran Public Library, projected at 412,000 visits next year, leaves the library seeking a planned 2% operating increase to avoid cuts. The CAO of the library reiterated that libraries are not a luxury, but an essential community infrastructure, as vital as roads or water systems. She said libraries put people first, providing equitable access to information, technology, and lifelong learning, bridging the gap between those with resources and those without. Shifting west to Manitoba. Maggie McIntosh, LGI reporter at the Winnipeg Free Press, brings us a report on how the province plans to shift from reactive truancy enforcement to a proactive tracking model. The Free Press recently sought a breakdown of chronic absenteeism rates in school divisions across Manitoba between January and June of this year. Manitoba Education replied, via Freedom of Information Officer, that there were no responsive records. Despite that denial from the province, their actions may indeed be informed by information, as other research reveals absenteeism rates above 70% in some inner-city schools and Indigenous students missing in greater numbers than their non-Indigenous peers. Heading north, LGI reporter Claire McFarlane at Cabin Radio brings us a story about a police chase in Hay River that injured a bystander after an officer continued a pursuit that did not meet RCMP criteria. RCMP policy is to not initiate or continue a vehicle pursuit unless they reasonably believe that the suspect has committed or is about to commit a serious act of violence against another person, and only if failing to immediately arrest the suspect poses a greater risk to public safety than a pursuit. The bystander said she has been trying for months to get a copy of the police's collision report at the request of her insurer, but police told her to file an access to information request to receive the report. Wrapping up this segment with a federal story. Immigration Minister Lena Diab has extended the pause on new applications through the Private Sponsorship for Refugees program for another 12 months as the department works to clear its backlog. Advocates called the extension a cruel blow as the backlog reaches 90,000 applicants. Internal documents obtained by the Canadian press through the Access to Information Law showed Immigration Department officials suggested the freeze on these applications could be in place until December 2028 to clear the backlog. Next, we turn to two stories on the international stage from Spain. Spanish courts have ordered Meta to pay 41 million euros to 81 media outlets after finding the company built an unfair market advantage by harvesting personal data in violation of European Union law. The 2018 EU rules, known as the General Data Protection Regulation, require companies that collect personal data of users to adhere to technological and organizational measures aimed at protecting user privacy. The ruling covers a 5-year period before Meta updated its consent model. The decision may shape similar actions in France and across the European Union. Meta said it will appeal, calling the ruling baseless. In another ruling, Spain's Supreme Court found the country's Attorney General, Alvaro Garcia Ortiz, guilty of leaking personal information to journalists about the partner of a political rival. He has been banned from office for 2 years, an unprecedented decision with significant implications for prosecutorial accountability. In addition to being removed from his post, the court ordered that he pay 7,200 euros, which is about $8,300 in fines, and 10,000 euros, which is about $11,500 in damages to González Amador, as well as the court fees. Garcia Ortiz denied any wrongdoing, and he can appeal to the Constitutional Court. And now to the United States. We start with the Associated Press, which obtained a draft executive order showing President Trump is considering steps to block states from regulating AI, arguing that differing state rules threaten innovation. 4 states already have AI laws targeting discrimination in data use. Those laws include limiting the collection of certain personal information and requiring more transparency from companies. The draft executive order would direct federal agencies to identify burdensome state AI regulations and pressure states to not enact them, including by withholding federal funding or challenging the state laws in court. Critics warn a federal override would shield large tech companies from accountability. Next, pressure is mounting over the Epstein files, now mandated for release within 30 days. Congress passed the measure with near unanimous support, reflecting intense public demand despite deep fractures inside the Republican caucus. While some expect a so-called client list, the Justice Department says no such document exists. The release will include investigative files, internal communications, and evidence from earlier probes, with redactions only for victim privacy and national security exemptions. Related reporting details what's expected in the files, how prior cases unfolded, and how limits on disclosure may disappoint those expecting sweeping revelations. Lawmakers believe there are reams more documents, but they have received little indication that the Department of Justice is ready to put out that information despite a subpoena from the House Oversight Committee that was issued in August. Lawmakers say contempt proceedings are possible if the DOJ withholds records unnecessarily. Representatives declined to speculate on who might appear in the files, but said they expect whistleblowers to emerge if anything is withheld. In Iowa, the state's largest school district released a report showing it relied on a consultant who delivered an incomplete background check and a likely forged transcript when recommending a superintendent that now faces federal charges. The former superintendent falsely claimed on his application that he obtained a doctorate in urban educational leadership from Morgan State University in 2007, according to documents the Associated Press obtained through a public records request. The district has launched litigation, and the case highlights systemic vulnerabilities in vetting senior officials. Finally, an extensive AP investigation reveals a powerful and largely hidden Border Patrol predictive intelligence program that uses nationwide license plate data and algorithmic profiling to flag suspicious travel patterns far from the border. The program has existed under the administration of both parties, and sometimes the surveillance equipment has been hidden in ordinary traffic equipment. Drivers have been stopped, questioned, and searched based solely on route patterns or rental car use, with local police often concealing the federal tip-off. Critics compare the system to mass surveillance practices abroad and warn it may violate Fourth Amendment protections. The Border Patrol surveillance system stretches into the country's interior and monitors ordinary Americans' daily actions and connections for anomalies instead of simply targeting wanted suspects. Customs and Border Patrol is now poised to get more than $2.7 billion to build up border surveillance systems such as the license plate reader program by layering in artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. Before we go, the Supreme Court of Canada will hear a case involving access to personal information held by Jehovah's Witnesses congregations. 2 former members sought records under BC's Personal Information Protection Act, but congregations refused, citing confidential religious communication. After an adjudicator ruled the information must be reviewed, the congregations argued this violated their charter rights. The adjudicator found elements of the BC Information Protection Law infringed the constitutional guarantee of freedom of religion, but concluded the breach was justified under Section 1 of the Charter. FIPA is reviewing options to legally intervene in this matter, and we'll have more on this in the weeks ahead. As always, we hope today's stories help you stay informed about the latest issues in privacy, information management, and public transparency. It was great to speak with BC Information and Privacy Commissioner Michael Harvey. Be sure to tune in for our shorts and the full conversation in the week ahead. To help us keep the mics on, consider subscribing through FIPA News Monitoring, or support our work with a donation. Our writer is Sean Fisk. Original music in today's show was composed by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. I'm Patrick Farnsworth, your host and producer. Thank you for joining. A big FIPA thank you to all the contributors, reporters, and outlets that make this podcast possible, and to you, our listeners, for helping make this project a success. Stay safe and stay informed.